great to talk to you after virtually communicating for many a year.
Right?
Yeah, and it's
We go back a long way.
indeed it's funny how there was a time where it was just totally fine to build your connections that way, and now there's a little bit of like, why are you contacting me if you don't know me, which is just
Right. Is there?
I mean, it depends. The vibe is very important. It depends on
Okay.
what the next step
Well,
is.
we go back a long way, so that's
Exactly.
okay.
And it's very cool just to see the work that you've been doing, because I think, if you have an actor you like and you see that someone keeps working with the same people, that's a good symbol that not only are they a good actor, they're probably a pretty good person. And then when you
Mhm.
see you get to work on bigger and bigger projects, it's just very fulfilling to watch someone who's clearly good at their job also succeed at their job, whether it's
Right.
Oscar nominations, Emmy wins. And I'm just curious, like, how do you build those bonds? The list of people that you work repeatedly with is fairly long, and how do you make that connection and then have it last? It's a hard industry to do that.
It's a very hard industry, but I think it's like anything, isn't it? You just, it's hard. Well, no, it's not hard work. It shouldn't be hard work to work with somebody you like.
Yeah.
I think, it's like not family, but I think when you get along with somebody and you work well together, it shouldn't be this big effort. And I'm not a naturally starstruck person.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult for me in this business, as you can imagine. Because if you're not starstruck and you're around a lot of starstruck people, you're very easily turned off, which I am. So anybody listening, I'm sort of that kind of jerk that when people are really starstruck, I'm a little bit like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the person I am. And I think the people that I work with kind of appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
So that we have, discussions that are real about real things. And it's not about other, the less interesting or superficial. So I've just managed. And then there are other people you try to work with again and it doesn't work out. And you try, it just timing isn't there.
Yeah.
And other people, you just feel like you kind of need each other more. Maybe there's that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I've noticed, even just talking to other people with, how long I've done this, the fact that it doesn't, I don't get the sweats when I'm talking to someone, and I'm willing to have a weird conversation. And what I've told, especially younger like people who are, how do you ever talk to them? I'm like, well, they're people. And 9 times out of 10, what you were saying, if you don't get starstruck, you're surrounded by people who do. So the Ryan Goslings, the Oscar Isaacs, the Jake Gyllenhaals of the world, 9 out of 10 people they're going to talk to are going to treat them like that. So when someone just has a conversation, is like, hey, what's going on? Did you watch the game? It responds in a different way because you want a human connection, no matter whether you're working with someone or just talking.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And it becomes, I remember going somewhere for dinner with somebody once who obviously was a famous person, who the person said, I never get my order. If I order broccoli, I get French fries, because the person's never listening.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, of course I get it. And I've seen it in my own department. And I've said to some of the makeup artists and hair people, if you're really starstruck, you have to decide, do you want to work with the actors or maybe with the background?
Yeah.
You have to decide what's better. Because if you're that person that's so starstruck, it can be very hard for you to be, anyway. But I've managed to develop relationships with people I really enjoyed working with. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm good to go.
Totally. But in this example, it clearly is working out with Oscar because you wound up on several projects now. And it's a whole other exercise of just, a different challenge. Here's, Dune is very, he looks pretty normal compared to some of the things you could have in big epic sci-fi. But now you get the chance to play a little bit more and, reference comic books, but also do your own thing. I imagine it's fun, especially if you're looking to have something different to do.
It was fun because it was new for me.
Yeah.
The Marvel universe, and it was fun, and it was a challenge in the sense that people prejudge a lot of stuff they work on, and I didn't know. And once I got there, they actually give you pretty wide berth. It was good.
Yeah, I've always described it to people as to some degree it's coloring within the lines, but they don't care what color you use. They don't care if you use a paintbrush or a pencil or a marker or blood. As long as you're within these parameters, go to town. We want it to all look different to some degree.
Everything has that.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And then you get to decide what you want to do as opposed to just, rifling through the book and going, okay, page 7 should look like this scene.
Yeah.
There's other people whose job it is to worry about that. You get to go, well, what looks right for this character? Or I get to talk to,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can communicate with Oscar and you can find the character that way. Cause obviously he's having 9 conversations with 9 people about the character in different ways. So if it's like, oh, I think he should look like this, you can go, I know what you mean by that. And I can work my magic.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What's prep like on any of these projects? I freely admit I know almost nothing about the world of makeup. I know that my ex-girlfriends wore them. That's about where I tap out.
Well, I mean, that's what most people, I think, what it comes down to. I think the prep was, it was minimal. I mean, I spent more, I guess, with May because we had to figure out what her look would be. Muhammad wanted her to have a very modern, natural, kind of Egyptian Cairo modern day, so hair and makeup, which I'm glad we did because there's a lot of misconception and preconception of what modern Egyptian women look like, and it's always very exotic and it's not correct. So I think we were quite right to do that, and I really enjoyed that working with her. And then Oscar doing Stephen Mark. I mean, they're the same guy with this personality disorder. One's, sweaty and sleep deprived, but it's the same guy.
Yeah.
So you can't go out there and do this, radical differences, but you have to see something, which I think we did, or I did, and worked with Oscar and did a lot of little nuanced things and subtle, less is more. But, with some changes, we did some prep, and the hardest thing were on the doubles.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the twinning doubles. You've got to have a guy feeding Oscar lines as he does Stephen when you need a mark, because those lines have to be delivered and you've got to have the camera access. Everything has got to be as though you've got the 2 guys together in the mirror.
Yeah.
You have to. It's hard. It's technically very challenging.
Oh yeah.
And Oscar did an amazing job.
For sure. And I think, talking about making them look different but still recognizable as the same person, it's a skill that also I think you develop when you work with someone several times. If Stronger is not going to look the same as Nightcrawler. You just also from just your own interest level, like you and Jake Gyllenhaal, you and Ryan Gosling, whoever you're working with, if you're working with them again, neither of you want to do exactly the same thing you just did. So even if it's just out of not being bored, finding like, what can we do? What if he's sweaty?
Well, I mean, I would kill to do another Nightcrawler. I mean, to get to do that with Jake again, well, we're all older, of course, but Dan Gilroy wrote, that's one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's incredible.
Well, how does that also work for you when you're looking for a project? How much is it, the script? Like, obviously there were things that read great, but also you're like, well, I don't know that there's a ton of work for me here. And there's also stuff I'm sure that reads fair that you're like, oh, I could go to town on this, but I'd be involved in something that I'd maybe care less about.
Well, I mean, Nightcrawler had a lot of elements in it for me, and just the look.
Yeah.
I always knew that he shouldn't be sweaty. I thought there was something about Lou that's sickly and yellow and kind of gross, but he doesn't sweat because that's the way he is.
Also never
he doesn't sweat. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
And Jake loved that idea. And yet people were nervous about it because, Jake's a good looking leading guy. He's a leading man. I mean, but he's also a character actor. He's a leading man who does character parts. How about that?
Yeah. That makes
something like that. Rather than a character actor doing leading man. But that's the way the world has, it's like Ryan Gosling. I felt like it's a little bit harder because Ryan is still a leading man who, so it's, the challenges in makeup are huge for what I do, because you get guys like that. Same with Oscar. They're essentially leading men who want some character aspects in the makeup to help tell the story, but they still essentially look like themselves.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a pushback potentially, maybe not for you, but there always could be with the people like, well, we cast them because they're beautiful. And, oh, wait, he wants you to make him ugly? Great. We don't want that because we still want people to come watch the beautiful person. And I'm sure that's a thing that is just even maybe subconsciously
I
like,
think Nightcrawler was a huge worry for people until we did it, and then
yeah.
everybody was fine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's until you see it work, especially if you're the one who paid for it, I'm sure your mind goes, oh, it's not going to work. And here's why it won't work, as opposed to
absolutely,
making it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how easy is it for you to watch the work once you do it? So obviously you see a lot before anything happens. You know, you have him in the chair, you're making him look a certain way. Camera's going to capture them a certain way. There's a lot that's still going to happen. Once the final project, you're watching Skyfall on the big screen, like how much do you process what you did and how much do you just enjoy the movie?
Oh, sometimes no, it's really hard. I think for anybody, if it's like whatever, you must feel it. Like you do something, I think for any of us, it's like watching yourself, recording yourself.
Oh yeah, I'll never watch this.
No, I mean, it's very difficult. So no, I mean, I found it very painful. I mean, I have to say, Dune's one of the only films I watched that I really had a great experience watching. I was very, not really about part of what I did or my team did, but about the film. I was really proud to be part of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of films, you just go, oh God, I can't believe that. Why did that happen? Why did I let that go?
Yeah.
But we all do that in any job, I think.
Yeah.
So it's very hard and I've worked on jobs I've never seen.
Yeah.
Because I can't bear it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the nature of, I'm, one medium to large cog in the machine. Like I can only do what I can do. What everyone else does is kind of not irrelevant, but I can't control that. And if I, am already going to obsess over what I'm going to do, I can't then worry about the editing and the cinematography because I'll go crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, so much of what you've done has been things that people respond to and enjoy the look of. And even if it's not a movie that's meant to be visually first, like I think of like a Stronger, that's very much about Jake's performance. It's very much about the emotion of the character, but he looks a certain way and you can appreciate that it looks the way you imagine that movie would look like. And that's not nothing. That's, that's a lot different than a Dune or a Moon Knight or, a Spider-Man or something where it's very big. And I'm sure the toolbox is bigger, but it's just as good work. And I think that's something you do is especially well.
Well, I appreciate it because I really enjoyed working on that. It's a phenomenal experience for me, for all of us. I think he did a great job. I think everybody worked very hard. I think it was a very underrated film, personally.
It was my top 5 of that year, made.
I was really upset. I was very upset about the whole thing because it had a lot of it resonated a lot for me on a lot of personal levels because of Jeff Bauman, because of Jake, because of my own personal situation of what had happened to me that year, with my health. And because my relationship with Jake is, very close and he's a really good friend of mine. I think it was hard, to go to Toronto Film Festival and sort of go, this movie's going to be, but it didn't, something happened. It didn't resonate.
Yeah.
Like First Man.
Yeah. When you're just like, there's no reason why this didn't take. It's like an organ transplant, like why this one didn't work, but this one did.
Man didn't either. First Man didn't either, but Stronger had a lot more soul to it, I thought.
Yeah.
But I don't know, but I'm glad. I mean,
I love both of them, but you're right in saying that like First Man, I think maybe confused people because it wasn't going for the feels as much as I want you to feel the way he feels. And he's not a person who shows emotion and people are trained to expect emotion. And I think that the withholding maybe confuse people. But like you said, you can only do what you can do and you can be proud of your work.
It was profound. I mean, First Man, for me, particularly Claire Foy.
Yeah.
But First Man, I just saw her last week. I mean, First Man left me I thought Ryan was great as well, but it left me in a state.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I, as we wrap, I just think that it's great to see someone who puts everything out there like you do and can do it in the big and the small and retains relationships with people. So, when a Ryan or an Oscar or a Jake or other people just beyond those 3 who sign on to a role, you're like, oh, I'm pretty sure I know who's also getting a job. And I also know that means I'm going to like the way it looks because there's talented people behind it. So, you should be very proud. And I'm sure.
That's a very kind thing of you to say. I thank you for that. That's very
and
nice.
yeah. And I look forward to the awards claim continuing for Moon Knight and beyond. You got another Dune in you, so this will not be the last time.
Well, spread the word on that one. I take your word for it, but thank you for that. That's really nice. How is your world? Everything good?
Hanging in there, but
Where are you? What part of the country are you in?
New York, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. I'm glad we got to do this. Fine. It's been